Imagine waking in the greatest city ever built. But instead of marble palaces and roaring crowds, you hear only the bleating of sheep grazing in what used to be the Roman Forum. The Colosseum, where 80,000 Romans once cheered, now shelters a handful of shepherds. The city that commanded an empire stretching from Britain to Babylon has shrunk to barely 17,000 desperate souls living in the shadow of their ancestors' glory. And then, on a hot August morning, death arrives. Not with armies or fire, but with something far worse. A plague so merciless, it will kill half the survivors of an already dying city. This is Rome in 1348, a graveyard pretending to be a capital. And you're about to witness its darkest hour.
A city that once ruled the known world now stands hollow, its streets haunted not by emperors or legions, but by ghosts of a forgotten glory. Rome in 1348 is a skeleton of its former self, a graveyard of marble and memory, where perhaps 17 to 20,000 souls wander among monuments built for 1 million. The Colosseum looms like a broken tooth against the sky, its arches sheltering shepherds and their flocks where gladiators once fought. The Forum, where senators debated the fate of nations, now grows wild with weeds and grazing cattle. And into this landscape of decay, something far worse than time or neglect is about to arrive, a darkness that will make the fall of Rome look like mercy.
The plague reaches the Eternal City in August 1348, but Rome has been dying for centuries. Where Constantinople thrives as the beating heart of Christian power, Rome has become a provincial town, stripped of its purpose when the Pope fled to Avignon nearly 4 decades earlier in 1309. Without the pilgrims who once flooded its streets, without the wealth of the church sustaining its economy, the city has contracted like a wounded animal. The abitato, the inhabited zone, clings desperately to the curve of the Tiber River, where water still flows and trade still limps along. Beyond this shrinking core stretches the disabitato, the uninhabited wasteland that German travelers describe with a mixture of awe and horror. Vast fields of green spread between crumbling temples. Disease-ridden marshes bubble with fetid water where aqueducts once carried fresh mountain streams. And everywhere, always, the ruins.
Walking through medieval Rome means navigating a city built on top of itself, layer upon layer of civilization and collapse. Ancient bath complexes have become fortresses for noble families who fight petty wars in the shadows of imperial grandeur. The Senate building, where Cicero once spoke, now serves as a church, its pagan past baptized and repurposed. Marble statues lie toppled and half-buried, their faces worn smooth by centuries of rain. Local workers chip away at ancient monuments, hauling stones to construct new buildings, each generation cannibalizing the last. There is no preservation here, no sense that these ruins represent something worth saving. They are simply raw material, quarries of pre-cut stone that save the labor of traveling to distant mountains. For the people living among these ruins, daily life follows rhythms both ancient and precarious. Farmers tend fields that stretch between fallen columns. Goats graze in what were once grand plazas. Families make homes in buildings that once housed senators, their cooking fires blackening walls decorated with fading frescoes. Water is scarce because most aqueducts stand broken, their arches like the ribs of some massive beast picked clean by time. Only 1 or 2 still function, and poorly, forcing residents to rely on the Tiber or on wells dug deep into ground that floods with alarming regularity. The river both sustains and threatens them, bringing trade but also carrying away anything or anyone caught in its seasonal rages. The social fabric of this diminished Rome is threadbare and tense. Noble families, descendants of ancient patrician lines and newer powers alike, appear to control scattered territories within the city walls, based on what we know from later chronicles. They build towers, fortify ruins, and wage miniature wars over control of roads and bridges. The absence of papal authority has created a vacuum filled by violence and opportunism. Common people survive in the spaces between these power struggles, working land that belongs to lords who might change with the next skirmish, praying in churches that represent the only remaining thread of stability and continuity. Then August comes, and with it, the plague. It arrives quietly at first, carried by merchants, spread through the cramped abitato where people live pressed against one another in medieval squalor. The disease shows no mercy to status or station. Within days, the swellings appear, dark buboes in armpits and groins that mark victims for certain death. Fever follows, then delirium, then the end. Most die within 3 days of showing symptoms. The speed is as terrifying as the pain. People eat lunch with their families and dinner with their ancestors.
Rome's small population offers no protection. If anything, the city's decay makes everything worse. With so few people to begin with, losing even a fraction devastates what little infrastructure exists. Physicians, already scarce, die tending the sick. Priests, expected to give last rites and hear final confessions, carry the plague from house to house. The dead accumulate faster than they can be buried. Bodies are thrown into pits, into the Tiber, left in abandoned buildings where no one dares enter. The air itself seems poisoned, thick with the smell of death and the smoke from fires that burn constantly, a futile attempt to cleanse the cursed atmosphere.
Medieval medicine offers nothing but bloodletting, prayers, and theories about bad air. Physicians prescribe fleeing the city, breathing through cloths soaked in vinegar, avoiding bathwater that might open pores to let the pestilence in. They speak of planetary alignments and divine punishment, of Jews poisoning wells, and God's righteous anger at human sin. None of it helps. The plague moves through Rome like a scythe through wheat, cutting down rich and poor, young and old, priest and peasant with equal indifference. The few doctors who remain quickly realize their knowledge is useless. Some flee, some keep trying, most die.
For survivors, the plague transforms an already broken city into something beyond recognition. Based on what we can piece together from surviving records and later accounts, homes stand empty, doors hanging open to reveal interiors where entire families perish together. Fields go unplanted because there is no one left to work them. Shops close permanently, their owners dead or fled. The noble families who once fought so viciously over territory now struggle simply to maintain their own households as servants and soldiers vanish into mass graves. The church, Rome's last stable institution, is devastated. While exact figures are difficult to verify, monastic communities across Italy reportedly suffered catastrophic losses, with some monasteries losing 2/3 or more of their monks. Parish priests die in numbers that leave the faithful without spiritual guidance at the moment they need it most. Yet, even in this darkness, something endures. The Romans who survived the plague of 1348 do not abandon their city. They cannot. Where would they go? For all its decay, for all its suffering, Rome remains the eternal city, the symbolic heart of Christianity, even with the Pope absent in Avignon. The survivors begin the slow work of recovery, though the city will never regain its ancient population or glory. They bury their dead. They replant their fields. They marry and have children to replace the lost. They pray in churches built on pagan temples, living quite literally among the bones of empire. The plague eventually passes, as plagues do, but it returns again and again over the coming decades, each wave smaller than the last, but still deadly, still feared. The population of Rome, already microscopic compared to its ancient peak, struggles to recover. Historical evidence suggests the city that once commanded legions across 3 continents now counts itself fortunate to maintain its diminished population, numbers that won't significantly grow again until well into the Renaissance. The disabitato spreads further, reclaiming more urban space, turning streets into pastures and forums into forests. Standing in 1348 Rome means standing in the ruins of the greatest empire the Western world had ever known, watching plague add fresh corpses to ancient bones. It means understanding that glory fades, that civilizations fall, that even eternal cities can die 1,000 small deaths before finally surrendering to time. The marble remains, the arches endure, the walls still stand. But the Rome of 1348 is a ghost haunting its own tomb, a living fossil that proves nothing lasts forever, no matter how grand its monuments or how mighty its legions once were.
If you found this journey through medieval Rome's darkest hour compelling, consider subscribing to Neo History Reborn. We bring ancient history back to life through immersive storytelling that makes you feel the weight of the past. Hit that like button if you want more deep dives into the moments that shaped our world, and drop a comment telling us what historical period you want us to explore next. History isn't just dates and names. It's the story of real people facing impossible circumstances and somehow surviving to tell the tale.